By the time the ceremony ended, the parking area was almost empty. 32 vehicles had vanished from the wedding grounds, including a vintage Mustang that had been passed down through Natalie's family for generations. Tow trucks still idled beyond the gate, like they had just finished a job they were proud of. Karen Crowley, the Homeowners Association president, stood beside them in a dark pink blazer, with the satisfied calm of someone who believed she had already won. Then, a low engine sound rolled in from the far end of the road. One black SUV appeared, then another, then more behind them, moving with deliberate control. The atmosphere changed instantly. Guests who had been celebrating only moments earlier turned toward the entrance in confusion. Both exits were blocked before Karen fully understood what was coming. The wedding that was supposed to be a quiet afternoon on private land had turned into the kind of scene people would talk about for years, and the woman who tried to embarrass the groom in front of everyone suddenly found herself trapped by a response far bigger than anything she had planned. Caleb Whitmore had lived on the edge of Stonebridge Estates long before the Homeowners Association got serious about controlling every curb, mailbox, and lawn ornament in sight. His land sat on a parcel that predated the neighborhood rules by years, which meant a stubborn little slice of his property never truly belonged to the board, no matter how many notices Karen mailed. That legal detail had irritated her for years. It gave her less power than she wanted. And people like Karen did not enjoy being reminded of limits. Caleb was the opposite of dramatic. He worked a demanding federal job, kept to himself, and rarely gave anyone a reason to remember him. Natalie Prescott, the woman he was about to marry, was equally practical. She wanted a small, honest wedding. Nothing flashy. So they planned the whole event on Caleb's own land. A simple tent, folding chairs, soft lights, a modest catered meal, and a private parking area that stayed entirely inside his boundary. The warning signs were there from the beginning. Karen had spent years acting like the association's rules reached farther than they legally did. She had fined Caleb for harmless things on his own property and pushed for access she had no right to demand. Every time he answered with county maps and calm refusals, she grew more annoyed. His refusal to argue only made her obsession worse. 3 weeks before the wedding, Karen appeared at Caleb's gate, dressed like she was arriving for a formal inspection. She came armed with the same attitude she always used when she wanted obedience disguised as procedure. She insisted the Homeowners Association had to approve the event, even though the wedding was not taking place on association property. Then she presented a made-up event fee that was so absurd, it felt almost insulting. Caleb checked the county rules again, confirmed the property line again, and stayed calm again. That only sharpened Karen's frustration. She wanted a reaction. She wanted anger she could use. Instead, she got legal boundaries and silence. So she shifted tactics. She called an emergency board meeting and framed the wedding as a security risk, a traffic problem, and a threat to property values. None of it held up under scrutiny. But that did not stop her from moving forward behind the scenes. She began treating the wedding not as a family celebration, but as a test of control she was determined to win. From that moment on, the atmosphere around Stonebridge Estates changed. The board still looked normal from the outside, but under the surface, Karen had already started preparing something ugly. Karen quietly contacted a towing company she had used before for smaller disputes. This time, though, she was not after a simple parking violation. She wanted a public humiliation event. She arranged for license plates to be collected during the rehearsal dinner, when most of the guests were distracted and nobody expected trouble. Then she told the tow operator that any vehicle connected to the wedding would be fair game as long as it was inside the community. Trevor Langford, the vice president of the board, started noticing the pattern early. The emails were too aggressive, the wording too personal, and the instructions too focused on punishment. He saved copies of everything, including messages that made it obvious Karen wanted the wedding to become expensive enough that Caleb would finally challenge the board again. She had also been routing contracts through a private company she quietly controlled, which meant fines and towing fees were not just about power, they were about money. Meanwhile, Caleb remained focused on the wedding itself. He handled seating, catering, and the small details that mattered to Natalie. He even made sure her father's vintage Mustang had a shaded parking spot. He had no idea that a plan was already in motion to erase the entire parking lot while the ceremony was still happening. And once those trucks rolled in, there would be no easy way to undo it. The wedding day started beautifully. The sky was clear. The tent looked perfect, and guests arrived in good spirits. Natalie walked down the aisle with her long curly golden hair catching the afternoon light, and Caleb stood beneath the floral arch as if nothing in the world could touch the moment. For a brief stretch of time, it looked like the day might stay peaceful. Then the tow trucks arrived, quietly, efficiently, almost surgically. A homeowners association security guard pointed them toward the lot, and they began loading vehicles one after another while the vows were still being spoken. Guests saw the trucks and assumed it was a temporary relocation. Nobody wanted to interrupt a ceremony, so most people stayed seated. That hesitation cost them everything. By the time the service ended, 32 vehicles were gone. Rental cars, vendor vans, guests' SUVs, and the priceless Mustang were all gone. The lot looked stripped bare. When the crowd finally realized what had happened, the mood changed from celebration to disbelief in seconds. Caleb reached the front of the property and saw Karen standing near the road with the kind of expression that said she believed the day belonged to her now. But then he noticed one vehicle on the impound list that was not like the others, a black government Tahoe. That was the moment the situation crossed into territory Karen never understood. Caleb made one calm call, and everything shifted. Minutes later, a sheriff's SUV arrived, followed by a line of federal vehicles moving up the road in a controlled convoy. Their emergency lights flashed without sirens, turning the afternoon into something unreal. The exits of Stonebridge Estates were sealed before Karen could slip away. Then the hidden truth started coming apart in public. A federal agent confirmed that the black Tahoe was government property, tracked in a national system. The tow was no longer a petty neighborhood dispute. It had become a serious, unauthorized removal of federal property. Karen's face changed the instant she understood that. The confidence vanished. The smugness disappeared. Trevor stepped forward with printed emails, board records, towing contracts, and business filings, showing that Karen's private company had been quietly profiting from homeowners association contracts for years. The towing invoices, the referral payments, the inflated fees, the pressure to punish residents. All of it was there in writing. What looked like enforcement was now exposed as a financial scheme wrapped in community authority. Karen tried to retreat from the scene, but there was nowhere left to go. Every excuse she had used collapsed in front of the guests, the board, and the investigators. She had not just overplayed her hand. She had handed everyone the proof they needed. The vehicles were returned that same day without extra charges, and the wedding eventually resumed under the tent. The band played again. Guests returned to their seats. Natalie and Caleb finished the celebration exactly as they had planned it, though no one in attendance would ever forget the interruption. In the weeks that followed, the Homeowners Association faced a full audit. Karen was suspended, then removed, and the private company she had used to profit from fines and towing contracts was cut off completely. The board brought in outside legal counsel and rewrote the rules from the ground up. No more private towing from land outside the association's jurisdiction. No more hidden vendor relationships. No more contracts without multiple bids. Residents who had been overcharged received restitution, and the county review left Karen facing formal consequences for the scheme she had built. The neighborhood became quieter in a good way. Less surveillance, less fear, less petty control. Trevor's saved records made sure the changes stuck. As for Caleb and Natalie, their marriage began with a story nobody else at the reception could top. Weeks later, when they looked back at the wedding album, they laughed at the photo of the convoy lined up beyond the fence. Karen had thought she was towing everyone out of the wedding. In the end, she was the one who never really left. If this happened at your wedding, would you stay calm or call in the convoy?